as someone who struggles to find so many relatable and honest and open people on social media, I think that's one of the main reasons why I am my, true self. I'm so transparent because I think people, normal working people need to see that.
The constant saying yes to everything and feeling like you've got to be available all the time, I think is what's gotten us into this. And we need to restore a healthy sense of no.
Hello and welcome back to People First, the Young Careers podcast. I'm your host Jordan, and in our final episode of season 2, we're unpacking the concept of hustle culture and what productivity looks like in today's world. For our listeners, I'm joined by Jessica Tagg, Client Relationship Manager at Manpower, and Jillian Reilly, speaker, consultant and author. Welcome to the podcast, guys. Jill, Jess, where are you joining us both from today?
I am calling you from Cape Town, South Africa.
Oh, I can't beat that. I'm calling from Newark, East Midlands.
Love that. And something we always ask our guests, Jillian and Jess, where was your first ever job? And this is not the one that you maybe declare in your CV. This is like, I'm talking about, did you collect any glasses at a pub? Those sorts of things.
So I'm originally from the States and from the Midwest of the States. And my very first job was in a department store, Dillard's department store in St. Louis, Missouri, where I worked as they called it like a floater or something. So if somebody was, sick or they needed extra help in a department, I would show up and, help customers and float around from department to department. And, of course, in the States, you can work at 16. So as a young 16-year-old, I was like so excited. I thought it was just the best job ever.
That sounds great. And Jess, what about you?
So my first job was actually in retail. So it was a bit like, have you heard of B&M Bargains? It's a bit similar to that.
Very familiar. Very, very familiar.
So it's called Boys. It's not that popular, but my first job was essentially working there, and I was there for about 3.5 years in the end.
From both working in the department store and in Boys, where have you reached now? Could you tell us a little bit just about what you do now in your day-to-day and just sort of briefly explain your current role sort of thing? So Jess, I'm going to come to you first this time.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm a client relationship manager working at Manpower. So I work on the Ministry of Justice account, and my role is to oversee all of the recruitment for the prison service roles that we do recruit for. So we have about 300 open vacancies that we are working on at the moment, and we've put over 300 people into jobs since taking over the contract back in March this year. So it's very busy, complex, lots of things going on, but I do really enjoy it. And yeah, it's a good contract to be on.
And Jillian, how about yourself?
Yeah, I ended up getting very far from retail, left Midwestern America, ended up in South Africa, where I got very much involved in sort of social change, international development. So I describe my career as helping people and organizations navigate change. So a lot of facilitation work, leadership and strategy. And most recently, I, as you mentioned in your introduction, authored a book called The 10 Permissions, Redefining the Rules of Adulting for the 21st Century, which is sort of about how we manage all the change that we have to deal with and still find a way to thrive among it all.
That's perfect. And I'm going to jump straight in to the questions, if that's okay. So what do we actually mean by productivity? This is a hustle culture episode, and we're going to talk about productivity, but what do you think it actually means to us in the day-to-day?
Good question. For me, I think being productive is about achieving something. It's about doing something you set out to achieve. I think there's a lot of stereotypes that productivity means you have to be busy and you have to be doing, 1,000 things at once to feel productive. But for me, I think being productive is achieving something you want to achieve, something you're passionate about. I don't think it's about having 5,000 things to do on your to-do list and ticking it off. I think, like you say, there is that stereotype that being productive means you have to be busy all of the time. But for me, I think, again, it just comes back to achieving things you want to achieve that are important to you.
Brilliant. And Jillian, would you have anything to add on top?
Yeah, I think Jess sort of summarized that really well. I think that's one of the issues that we're currently sort of almost renegotiating at work because we're moving from the stereotype that you guys reference of hours spent and, just the grind to, what actually have you accomplished? So it's more about output than input. And I think younger generations are, really sort of asking us to look more closely at, does it matter how long I spend in the office or what I actually achieve? So I'm going to echo what Jess said, that it's about, accomplishing key responsibilities and, getting the output that you're responsible for done in whatever way and whatever time frames suit you.
And Jillian, that leads nicely on to my next question. So, do longer hours always equal higher productivity, in your opinion?
No, I think that's part of what we're seeing now. I mean, I'm gonna own the fact that I come from the generation that I think really glorified, all the extra hours and all the hard work and sort of handing your life over to your job as your total identity. And I think that's part of the kind of post-COVID recalibration that people are sort of saying, if I can get my work done in a certain time frame, then that's what matters. So absolutely not. It's about output, not input. And I think it's about, looking after our own well-being and our own sort of, continued growth and energy rather than burning out in the name of, devotion to work.
Perfect. And Jess, do you have anything to add?
I think Gillian's hit the, nail on the head there. I think she's absolutely right. I think, there is that worry of burnout if we do spend too many hours at the office or spend too many hours putting like work together, like on a presentation or a project, let's say. So I do agree. I think it is about the outcome, not how much time you kind of spend doing it.
That makes complete sense to me. And from your experience, both of you, a little bit of an open-ended question, but in your eyes, what do you think a healthy relationship with productivity looks like?
Well, I think it's very much up to the individual, to the team, to the project. But I think it's, when you are able to achieve the outcomes, as Jess said, required in such a way that you're not compromising your own well-being or the remainder of your life. Work is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think what we have to look at is sort of how we continue to grow and evolve over time. So if you're killing yourself to achieve one outcome and then, there's the next one and the next one, it kind of doesn't make any sense. So I think it's about balancing individual well-being with outcome, and that's an ongoing process of, conversations among team members and leaders and their staff and your own personal sort of boundary keeping. And I think that's again where a lot of the conversations are headed right now, that people want to kind of engage with this and not just assume they're going to be, there for 16 hours a day trying to, meet the targets.
That's perfect. And we've actually talked a lot this season on the podcast about Gen Z's attitudes to work and how maybe it does differ to previous generations. So many now that we've spoke about are prioritizing a work-life balance over climbing the ladder, so to speak. Jillian, I'm going to come back to you. You have coached people from all walks of life. Have you noticed a shift in attitude towards careers and productivity?
Yeah, and I think it's a natural adaptation to the past 20 years. I mean, I think this generation has watched a real shift from sort of the early 2000s until now of, you know, um, the fact that they're not rewarded for all the hard work that, my generation thought if we worked hard, we'd be rewarded for it. They're sort of seeing the fact that you can give everything and still get laid off tomorrow. They've lived through COVID where they've seen that actually there are a lot of different ways to work. And so the old prescription for sitting at a desk for, change your desk is really not necessary. So I think it's natural that they would be asking questions about, is this the only way? Is this the best way? And I personally think it's a very healthy conversation. I don't think it's entitled. I think it's realistic. And I hope that it'll drive kind of adaptations to the way we work rather than people sort of doubling down on return to office and, long hours. I think we need to move forward, not back.
I agree. And I want to move on to hustle culture. this episode, to be honest, is something that I was an episode that I was quite looking forward to whenever I seen the script and the plan from the last year, because I think hustle culture has sort of like a buzzword or a buzz term that really crescendoed and has sort of maybe dropped off a little bit over the last year or two. So hustle culture, or the grind, as we like to call it, and maximizing all areas of your life, are often romanticized on social media. I grew up in the girl boss era, you know. I think we've all seen that. We've seen the programs and we've seen the TED Talks and those sorts of things. And as much as I really, really agree with working hard and bettering yourself, I don't always agree in the mantra of burning yourself into the ground and reaching phases of burnout that we sort of touched upon. And I also do think that it has really been romanticized on things like podcasts and on social media, because the steps that someone takes to reach the position that they aren't always linear compared to everyone else. You know, some people have had a little bit of a leg up in life. Some people's circumstances are just a little bit different. So do you think that the message around hustle culture is empowering, or do we think that it's unhelpful?
Oh, I look at it from two sides, to be honest. I think you see so much on social media, like these days. There is that pressure, that stereotype. Everybody romanticizes their routines, their day to day, and that's in and out of work. And I feel like sometimes people may watch that and be like, well, I'm not doing that. I haven't got time to get up and go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning and then go work a 9 to 5 shift. And then in the evening, I'm doing X, Y, Z. I think is very romanticized on social media, but then at the same time, there's so many real creators and social media people, that do show a more realistic version of their life. And if they do have like a side hustle, or they're sharing like their, business or something they're passionate about, they do it in a way where it's not romanticized. So I do kind of see that from both sides.
Yeah, I would agree. And just kind of a slight another perspective on that is that I think what we're moving into now, and what I'm seeing a lot of, and I talk about in my book, are portfolio careers. So, the idea that you will probably have multiple things on the go, that you might not be able to rely on one full-time job. I think that is going to become an increasing reality for people. So, I do think we need to wrap our head around the fact that that linear, singular career path might be giving way to something that involves you managing multiple threads of work. Now, whether or not that's hustling, yeah, it'll probably involve something that looks a little more entrepreneurial than an old school one singular job did. But I think, as you're saying, Jessica, it's not about sort of romanticizing the idea that this is the silver bullet answer to, you and your life. I think, though, it is going to become an increasing reality that we need to figure out how to do without the burnout, without the, you know, sense that we don't have any time for ourselves, or we don't have, lives and families and everything else that is just as important to us as our work. So, yeah, I think it's evolving, and I think we need to figure out how to drive it better.
Absolutely.
I completely agree with you both. I don't really think, I mean, I love seeing like a good news story online of someone who's really like created an amazing life for themselves and obviously have worked hard for that. In the start of my career, I've always worked two jobs actually, and at some point in times three. And it's not because at times, yes, it was because I needed the extra money, of course, or I wanted to go out an extra night out at the weekends and things like that. But I've still retained my other job even now into my new role at ManpowerGroup, and I don't do it to, again, it's not to plug into hustle culture. I actually really find that it impacts my day job positively, because I make a lot of decisions during the day, and I really like to go into an environment where everyone's doing the same job. And I almost find it to be a switch off whenever I go into the pub on the weekend,
Mm.
and work with people face to face, have that proper human interaction that maybe you don't always get on Teams, shake people's hands, see their reactions, those sorts of things. And like I said, that sort of has transitioned from like a bit of a hustle into a bit of a well-being exercise for me. But bringing it back to our questions, I would love to know, like, in your both of your opinions, where do you think that the productivity obsession has actually come from? Is it a response to the economy? Is it a response to COVID? Is it self-improvement and personal development culture that maybe we see written about in the press or on Instagram?
I'm gonna say I think it predates culture. I mean, I'm aging myself in this conversation, but it's real. I mean, I think it came out of the 80s and the 90s. I was alive and going into work at those times where suddenly you had this attitude that, the work hours started to expand. Like if I think about my dad, he was home every day at 5:30. Like there was a much more fixed understanding of what roles were and what responsibilities were at work. And I think during the late 20th century, moving into the 21st century, we started to kind of push on those boundaries a bit and say, hey, we can do more, we can make more. Suddenly people started to feel like they could, if they worked hard, they could, get the money in return. And I think that's only compounded sort of with every decade. And now I think we are seeing, as we've already talked about, a little bit of a reckoning of, gosh, there are people who, are not being rewarded for all their hard work. They're not willing to trade themselves for the potential rewards. So I think it's a very long time coming of, companies realizing that we could work extra hard and everybody could make extra money. And so that was a real ethos of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I think my opinion's a little bit different with this one. I think from my perspective, from everything I see on social media and things about like hustle and productivity, I still think we are still seeing impacts of things in today, day-to-day life from COVID still. I think for me, for example, when COVID hit, I was at university and they basically told us we had to go home. They were closing all of the dormitories, the digs, people call it different things. And I was also furloughed off my job. And I think for me, it made me realize there's actually, when you're sat at home every day for a full 7 days, you've got nothing to do. You've got no job to go to. You've got no university work going on. Makes you realize that there's actually so many hours in the day. And I think that's where all of these creators and people on social media kind of started doing these productivity or hustle, kind of themes, because they realize actually there's so many hours in the day. You can do X, Y, Z, but now everybody's kind of gone back to work. I think that's where the challenge is, because we haven't got 7 days a week where we're doing nothing all day because we have jobs to go back to and lives now. But I still think COVID is part of where this stigma's come from.
I would agree with you, Jess, to be honest with you. I saw a lot of people start businesses and things like that over COVID, whether it was making cakes to jewelry to everything, and what that sort of leads me on to the point is, do we think that's time actually took away, or the joy away, from having just a hobby? I've always been known in my group of friends, considering the line of work that we do, to have a little bit of a CV clinic. Or if you need to apply for a job or you want someone to look at your CV, come to Jordan. That's sort of the known thing in our group of friends. But I didn't see any need to monetize that. I'm not going to charge people a $5 a pop or a $10 a pop. It just, you do it for the greater good, and because these sorts of things swing back. So I think that there is a sort of harm, in my opinion, in trying to put a pound sterling value into everything that we're outputting. And I don't know if either of you agree with that or disagree, but I'll sort of put that back to you.
Yeah, I just also don't think it's realistic. I mean, the amount of effort required to monetize something adequately to, make it a meaningful difference in your life, as we all know, I think it's a lot. It's a lot to turn something into an actual business. So I think that's what people realized. I think at that time we were all afraid and confused and disoriented, and some of that gave us back a sense of control, gave us a sense of
Yeah.
progress when we'd sort of lost it. So, I think now, yeah, again, I would absolutely agree that we should do things that we love, and that those things can, without being monetized, they can still form part of your broader life, your broader career. Like, take note of what you love doing. Take note of what really excites you and where you feel most in flow. And that can inform some of your bigger choices about your career or your life without feeling like you have to instantly sort of monetize them. And also, don't not do something because it can't be. Like, those are the things that can bring you so much joy and so much meaning outside of work. And the fact that they don't turn into a business doesn't make them not worth doing.
I agree, Jillian. And Jess, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, really. I think Jillian, again, has said everything I would say myself there. I think, again, it's just about bringing enjoyment back, isn't it, to your hobbies? Majority of us, if we work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, obviously we are at work the majority of our week. So I do agree. I think it is important in your spare time to be doing things that you are, you do enjoy, you are passionate about, and you don't necessarily have to make money or profit from it. So
I agree. And both of you have touched upon something which is it's special to me is just that idea of joy, like
Mm.
bringing it to yourself. I've had questions on this podcast about things that I do outside of work. I hang out with my friends because that brings me joy, I would rather spend time connecting with my friends and family that are really, really bringing me serious enjoyment than worry about reaching the next step in my free time or doing something new. And I don't know if that will always be the case. And I'm sure that's been the same for both of you over over the years and those sorts of things. But I think what productivity impacts or the search for to reach a hustle culture or a high performance culture is actually your well-being outside of that. We need downtime. Everyone needs time to rest and recuperate and think, decompress, debrief on things. So I'm sure both of you have heard of the my 5 to 9, before my 9 to 5 or after my 9 to 5. And it's sort of become a little bit of a trend on social media. Why do you think people might enjoy this content? And is there any part of it that you both think is like a hindrance or sort of not good?
Oh, good question. I mean, for me, I will not be at the gym for 5 o'clock in the morning before I go to work. So that's
Neither
one
will
thing I will
I.
say I don't like. But that's just me. Some people obviously do go to the gym at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning before work. So I think some people do enjoy it. I think, a lot of creators will do their routine before their 9 to 5 and afterwards. And it's very full on. They're not stopping. They've time stamped it every hour as well, what they're doing. And I think it will benefit people who are looking for a more structured or a better routine day, let's say. So I think it does benefit and help some people. But obviously everybody's personal circumstances are different and not everybody has the time or the facilities to go and do a routine that's structured and full on and hectic. So yeah, I see it from both sides. I think it benefits some people who like that structure and have got the time and the facilities to do something like that. But again, some people may watch that and think, oh, I'm a failure because I'm not, at the gym at this time. I'm not doing all of this after a day at work. I just go home, have my dinner and go to bed. So yeah, I see it from both sides, really.
And I'm going to come to you, Jillian, as well on this.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, I think this focus on routine and rigor and discipline, again, in my mind, it's a response to a lot of people feeling like the world is overwhelming. Things have changed so much over the last 5 to 10 years. A lot of us look around and go, "Oh my gosh, the world's chaotic. I'm going to double down on these, as you described, Jess, time stamps, strict routines. I'm in control of my day. I'm doing this, this, this." And it's like, as you said, that might work for some people, but what I would also not want to see is for those for whom it's not feasible, women with children, people who, live in circumstances that they're not that in control of every one of their, choices to feel like that's a prerequisite for success. It's not. And I think that there are many, many different ways. I would love for people to listen in to what they need from their,
Yeah.
5 to 9, not look around for an influencer to tell them what it is. So, yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page that if it works for you, great. But I think we also all need to listen to our own internal sort of needs and respond to those first and foremost.
I agree. And is there anything, I mean, I definitely don't get up at 5 in the morning. I'm sure, I hope that you both don't as well. But is there any like rituals or, mantras or anything that you sort of do pre-starting at 9 o'clock or when you start work? Is there anything that you like to tick off or get out of the way before you do start the day?
I am a morning person, so I do like to kind of get a lot of things done. I do like to move in the morning. I just find that then when I sit down, I'm a little bit less So, I like to go for a walk or do something that just gets me outside a little bit, but that's not like, from 7 to 8, I do this. It's like, okay, I'm going
Yeah.
to try and do something before I spend the next several hours sitting. So I would say morning movement is important to me, and I try and make it happen as much as I can.
I wish I could be like you, Jillian, to be honest. I would love to get
Me
out
too.
and move in the morning. My most movement is my walk to the train station on my commute. But
Well, that's movement.
when
That is
yeah,
movement.
it is, I guess. But I think again, I recently just moved from a marketing job to a press officer role, and I have to read a lot of news. And I have reshaped my morning scrolling on Instagram or on TikTok and pivoted that to reading the news, finding out what the stories were overnight, anything that I need to sort of know for that day. I've tried to replace that time with actual that's more productive than just seeing what my friends have been sharing overnight on TikTok with me. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe
Yeah.
before I've got to the office, I'll try and check what I'll not be responding to emails, but I'll know what sort of my plan of action is before going in. And I think that small step or those small tweaks to my morning routine really, really did change how my day was set up.
Mm,
For example, if I know I've got a call at 12 o'clock that I would like to do a little bit more reading before, I will do that in that time. So I'm not sort of frantically trying to familiarize myself with something before a time in the day. So I know that's only like a small tweak in someone's routine, but I've really found that that's like really benefited how my day starts.
mm.
I'm not going into my desk at 9 o'clock like, what is here for me? I'm sort of there ready to get started. Or do you agree? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, so I'm not a morning person, as you can
Okay.
probably tell from many comments that I've made so far on this podcast today. I love my sleep, that is no secret, but one thing I will say has helped me is I have a morning 9 o'clock team call every single day, Monday to Friday, with my recruitment team. And I think this motivates me to get up for the day. I know that at 9 o'clock I'm on camera, I'm on a half an hour Teams meeting. So I know before 9 o'clock I need to be dressed, I need to be ready with plenty of time. So for me, it allows me to make sure that I do get out of bed, plenty of time, get ready for the day, get myself a coffee or
Yeah.
breakfast. And for me, that routine just really helps me just get started with the day as soon as I can, really, rather than sitting in your pajamas till you're on meeting sort of thing.
But
Mm.
that is an impact of I think COVID and working remotely over COVID, those sorts of times.
Mm.
Is there has been days where yes, I have rolled out of bed and came on camera
Yeah.
more or less in my pajamas, but I know I'm the type of person I need to be fully ready for work. That's how I know that I'm gonna do well. I need to be dressed. I put aftershave on before this Zoom call, even though neither of you are gonna smell me, but it's sort of like a way to I don't know, to switch through from my personal time into work mode, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, I want to move on to the next phase of our discussion, and that's just sort of about finding the balance. So I think from the three of us, I don't know if we're completely against hustle culture, but there is parts of it that I guess could be problematic. And if you find content like this motivating, brilliant. But do either of you have any advice in terms of to how to consume this content mindfully?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is about boundaries. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is, I often with the people who I work with talk about getting really mindful of like what you say yes to and what you say no to. Like getting super
Sure.
granular about like being clear about what am I saying yes to in terms of my time and my energy and my focus. And what are the things that I'm, willing to say no to because they're burning me out. They're sapping me of energy that I could apply somewhere else. So, I think if you wanted to be mindful about how you're finding balance or how you're navigating your own career with some degree of intention, I would just get super clear about, what I was saying yes and no to as a way of creating boundaries for myself that help me kind of keep going over time.
That's perfect. Jess, anything to add?
No, I would agree with what Jillian said there. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned over this past year or so is that you are allowed to say no. a couple of years ago, I probably would have thought, oh no, I can't say no. I've got to say yes to everything and do this. But now, because I've grown within myself, I feel like, you are allowed to say no. If you don't want to do something or go somewhere or watch a video, you can press not interested. You can say no. And I think it's so important to remind yourself that everybody's different. Everybody's got different personal circumstances, different jobs. And I just think it's so important not to compare yourself to other people and feel the pressure from social media. As someone who does do social media part-time outside of work as my little kind of side hustle, I try to keep my content really open, transparent. I am my true 100% authentic self on my TikTok page, and people will vouch for that. I think it's so important. I'm just so honest to the point where I probably overshare. But for me, as someone who struggles to find so many relatable and honest and open people on social media, I think that's one of the main reasons why I am my true self. I'm so transparent because I think people, normal working people need to see that. And plus, I'm not, like I say, at the gym early mornings. So yeah, keep it real.
But it's nice that you're putting out the content that you want to see, Jess. You've created a space where you think that it lacks, if that makes sense. And
Absolutely.
I want to move back to something that Jillian touched upon, which is burnout. So the big B, it's a huge buzzword that we talk about a lot on this podcast. It's something I've experienced myself probably multiple times throughout my career. But how can we chase our goals and avoid burnout at the same time?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Jess's saying no. I think, my book is called The 10 Permissions, and I think that one of the permissions that we don't give ourselves is no. Especially as young people, we believe we've got to chase everything and say yes to everything because that makes us a good employee. And, often what it makes you is a very reliable workhorse. And I think that we need to understand that getting ahead is not about, giving 150% of ourselves all the time. And that actually, intentionally navigating, which means, no, I can't do that. Yes, I can do that, is we're allowed to do that. And if that causes an issue with our team, with our leader, then we need to have that discussion. But the constant saying yes to everything and feeling like you've got to be available all the time, I think is what's gotten us into this. And we need to restore a healthy sense of no, I'm not available and I'm not going to do everything all the time.
I definitely used to be guilty of saying yes and figuring it out later, whereas I think no is probably the most powerful word you can use in your professional life,
Yeah.
And carrying on from what you just said, Jillian, if you were to urge someone like myself and Jess to take away one thing from the 10 permissions, what would you say that would be?
Oh, one thing. That your life and your career path will not look the way your parents did, that it will probably not look the way you expected it to, that it is gonna probably have, curves and changes, and that you can drive that curving and changing path. I think we kind of have to be ready to make change within the course of our careers and not feel like we've got to be, fixed in one role or one position or one, version of ourselves. And I think we kind of know that, but we still feel very hesitant and uncertain of whether or not we're allowed to really drive it with confidence and even courage to do things that serve us and suit this moment. So, yeah, it's sort of how to create a thriving career in a very fluid world where things are changing all the time. And that means being more adaptive and being kind of front-footed about managing and making change within your own career.
I think that's a brilliant takeaway, Jillian. 100%, completely agree with you. I think it goes back to the rather than work harder, work smarter. Think about things that you can do that are going to give you great experience. Think about people that you maybe want to work with that you think you're going to learn a good amount from, rather than overloading yourself with work for no tangible gain at the end. It's sort of being
Yeah.
smart and being strategic in terms of where you're doing good work, where
Mm.
you're hustling, those sorts of things. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I mean, you just use the word where you want, And, my first permission is be willful. Like, what do you want? Like, get clear about it. Allow it to drive you. I think, a lot of us early on feel like we can't name what we want. We can't do what we want. Like, we have to just take the best thing that's available to us. But I think in this world, one, you've got to know what you want. And two, it's a very fluid and flexible world. And if you know what you want and go after it, then, there is a chance that you can create it or incorporate it within your life. So you're allowed to go after what you want, and to, not always feel like you've got to defer to somebody else's set of expectations about what you should be doing or where you should be by when. Yeah, it's a different world, and we've got to allow ourselves to adapt to it accordingly.
I agree. I think that was beautifully put, Jillian. And Jess, do you have any final takeaways for our listeners?
Oh, final takeaways. I think it's important to sometimes just take a step back and look at what you've achieved. I think when we are going at, 100 miles an hour and we're having a bad day, or there's a lot of things going on, we kind of go into that dark mode. And I think sometimes we just need to kind of pause, take a step back, reflect on the situation, and just look at how far you've come and just believe in yourself, I would say. One thing I never used to do was believe in myself. And it took a while to get there. So I would definitely say for young people, especially starting a career, just believe in yourself. And just want to echo one thing Jillian did say as well. She said, go after what you want. And I'm a big, firm believer on this. I think life is short. It's your life. Be selfish. Go after what you want and do what makes you happy.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo that point as well. I heard someone say once that closed mouths don't get fed, and I think having that idea of like what you want is so important because it helps you figure out how you're going to get there. My message would be, if there is something that you want, evaluate who the right people are to take you to that goal rather than trying to work yourself into the ground to reach that point. So Jillian, I'm going to come to you first. Where can our listeners keep up with your work?
Yeah, I think my website, 10permissions.com, is kind of the one-stop shop for everything that I'm creating. Obviously, I'd love for people to pick up the book. It's currently available on Amazon, and through Waterstones, and you can order it through any local bookstore. But along with that, I am creating a community of young people who are trying to navigate their lives with intention. And, all of that fiery will that you sort of just described, Jordan, where we're naming what we want and going after it. So really inviting your young listeners to come and be a part of this, because I think, it's easy to feel very lonely and isolated when you're trying to figure out things at a young age, and whether you're doing it right and whether you're making the right choices. And I think we need community now more than ever. So I really want to encourage people to reach out, and you can find all that information on my website.
Thank you, Jillian. And I could have spent another hour extra talking about the idea of community, but I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah.
Jess, I'm going to come to you. Where can our listeners keep up with you? And for anyone internal, maybe if they want to speak to you, what can they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, drop me a message if anyone does want to reach out. And then for our internal listeners, please feel free to reach out to me on Microsoft Teams as well. I'm always around if anybody ever wanted to pop in for a chat.
And what if anyone wants to come and listen to your content or watch your content, Jess? Where can we plug that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on TikTok and Instagram. So my TikTok is Slim and What with Jess. So it's essentially, it covers my weight loss journey and healthy recipes and just day-to-day random vlogs. So if anybody was interested in that sort of thing, that's where to find me as well.
Brilliant. And that is the end of today's episode. A big thank you to both Jillian and Jessica for sharing their thoughts and advice on this topic. And to our listeners, if you're in the market for a new role, why not check out Brook Street online? There may just be your dream job waiting there for you. If you enjoyed today's episode, why not share it with a friend or one of your colleagues? And remember to follow People First on your favourite podcast platform. Thank you, and see you later.